this is a PowerPoint on the Loas. Starting with Druid and Gonk the Raptor. Gonk is not a good card. It requires an incredible amount of setup to get the OTK out of it, and then as a value card of just hitting your face into minions, why? It's 7 mana to do that in the first place. It's not very good. It's going to start a long trend of the Loas being very bad, so just get that, get ready, because I'm just going to go through and talk about how terrible each and every one of them truly was, and it is something. If you really want to play an attack OTK kind of Druid, you can just play Even Druid, and it's quite good. Even Druid has a lot of favorable matchups, and guess what? You can't run Gonk in any of those. I will say, Gonk probably should be in Guff's Twist deck. Makes absolutely no sense for it not to be there. Guff is all about gaining armor, all about, having an above average health pool, and of course dealing face damage and using attacks, so Gonk not being in that deck makes no sense. This is just a little side tangent I wanted to put, but because there's not really much to say about Gonk, because, man, this card sucks. Then, Halazzi the Lynx. Although Halazzi is a absolutely atrocious, terrible card that I hate, and is dog, why is it a 5-mana 3-2? Anyway, I do have to bring up the fact that this card was actually playable in Unseal the Vault Hunter. Unseal the Vault Hunter was a pretty good deck during its time in Uldum. It was definitely something that you cannot overlook. Halazzi made that deck have at least one more option for filling your hand and playing a lot of beasts and a lot of tokens for the quest. You would probably get about 5 minions on average from Halazzi, so Halazzi itself makes 6, which is a pretty big portion of the quest. That's a quarter of the quest, or more than, actually. So it would actually add up. Halazzi, absolutely atrocious card in every single other aspect, though, outside of that deck. Just truly terrible card. Then you have Jan'alai the Dragonhawk. Again, Hero Power Mage was tried to say the least in Roscon's Rumble, but you didn't have Wildfire, you didn't have Reckless Apprentice, and by the time you had Wildfire and Reckless Apprentice, you had Mordresh. And Mordresh is significantly better than Jan'alai. Mordresh was better than Jan'alai when Mordresh was 10 mana, and now, guess what? Mordresh is 8 mana. If you really want to be summoning cheaper Ragnaroses, just play Jive Insect. Jan'alai is completely useless. Then you have Shal't the Tiger. Probably the best Loa of them all. You could play this in Exodia Paladin as a healing option, which you would get pretty cheap throughout the game, because Exodia Paladin was a pretty slow deck. You could actually get Shal't down to 7, 8 mana pretty consistently, and then sometimes even cheaper, so it could come down. But, of course, the main power of Shal't is with Holy Wrath. You could have used Polkout to set Shal't as the top card in your deck, so it wouldn't get used often for Holy Wrath, but then eventually Order in the Court was printed, did the same thing, but with the nerf to Order in the Court, Shal't was now always at the top of your deck when ordered, so you could Holy Wrath your opponent for 25 damage for 7 mana. You could do it on turns 5 by reducing the cost of Holy Spells, so it was a pretty relatively consistent combo that was, weak to armor and having more health, of course, but there were ways to mitigate that in Paladin. So the deck was actually pretty strong for a while before it got so many nerfs because of Standard and Paladin, not at all because of the deck itself. Then you have Bwonsamdi the Dead. I'm going to be honest with you, I don't know what they're going for with this card. It was trying to synergize with the Spirit of the Dead, which would shuffle minions that die into your deck that cost 1, but that was bad. And so Bwonsamdi was drawing actual 1-cost cards, which, is fine. It's not amazing, and it had a niche as a way to, refuel a Rhino Priest. You would have a lot of 1-cost cards to fuel your hero power pings, but obviously that wasn't very good, it's War Golem that doesn't really have any upside. Drawing 2 1-drops is not that great late game, so of course Bwonsamdi is very bad, and I still am just completely baffled by this card's design. Man, does it not really make any sense. Then you have Gral the Shark. This card had one niche, and only one, and it was to eat the darkness in Standard during Roscon's Rumble. That was it. Was that good? No. It was pretty bad. However, sometimes you high rolled and had a Gral the Shark for a 5 mana 22/22 on turn 4, and that's really hard to deal with for most decks. And that would code win you the game. That is the only use case for this card. There's actually just don't let anyone try and tell you that there was another use of this card, because it was just terrible. I truly cannot understand this card, its design. Why is it so expensive? Why does it suck so much? What was the point of it? It just does not do anything. I don't get it. This is a very weird set of cards, in my opinion. A lot of them just make no sense and are truly terrible. Gral the Shark is definitely one of the worst. Then you have Krag'wa the Frog. Again, not very good. This card, it's supposed to give you back spells after you play a lot of spells, but there weren't really any spells you wanted to get back. I'm not too sure. This card came back to Standard and was, again, useless in Standard. So there's not really much to talk about this card here. The best use case of this card was to pull it off of the Countess's invitations so you could get more invitations, and it was actually quite good at doing that. It was a high roll to get Krag'wa, actually, but that's not really a Shaman use or a main deck use for the card. So I just don't understand this one. Like I'm saying, a lot of these cards are just so horrifically bad that they probably would have been bad, had they been printed in, the Grand Tournament. That's how bad these cards are. And they're still, I don't know. It's so hard to talk about because there's just nothing interesting about these cards, but I have to talk about them because I'm trying to go through every single card, or every single kind of cards that have been throughout the game eventually, and this one had to come up eventually. Then you have Hir'eek the Bat. Hir'eek the Bat is considered one of the worst cards ever printed for pretty obvious reasons. The whole point is that you are supposed to hand buff this in Warlock, but hand buff Warlock doesn't really exist. I think there are 3 hand buff Warlock, I think there's one or maybe 2 hand buff Warlock cards that were not printed in Roscon's Rumble. One of them being Scrap Imp, which was a good card. Scrap Imp was an incredibly powerful card. Don't get me wrong, it got nerfed. But that wasn't because of Hir'eek in the slightest. And then there's Soul Infusion from Boomsday, which I guess, could have worked with Hir'eek. You could have had a 8 mana 3/3 with this effect. It's just a terrible, terrible, terrible effect. I mean, Hir'eek as a card just made 8 drops worse. That's all this card did. There's no reason to play it at all. It's just horrifically bad. This is one of the most uninteresting cards ever printed, in my opinion, as well. Because, how could you make this work without, I don't even know. I don't know how you could ever make this card work. Yeah, you'd have to buff the absolute shit out of it. But then, if you make it 5 mana, and then, if you make it something 5 mana, you can make some incredible amount of stats, right? Nope, it wouldn't even be good at that. There's a mana breakpoint where this card goes from still being bad to being, probably really overpowered, but only with, fucking, dude, who knows, 3 mana, right? Because the card would probably still be bad at 4 mana, I'm gonna be honest with you. So that's just, I don't know. It's just such a baffling decision. All of these Loas, they're just so stupid. A lot of them just don't work and don't make any sense. So I can't understand why they were printed, especially a card like Hir'eek. Then you have Akali the Rhino. Sadly, this is one of the best ones. It's a bad card. It's still a bad card, but compared to most of the rest, this is not the worst effect in the world. It's 8 mana 5/5 rush, overkill, draw, rush menu from your deck, give it +5/+5. That's not the worst effect in the world. Warrior for a long time had very bad card draw, so Akali wasn't the worst thing ever in a control warrior, even in Wild. It wasn't amazing, but speaking to warrior players, they've used this card for that exact reason. They just didn't really have better options. It's not great. I will never say this is a great card, but when you don't have better options, a card that is pretty normal, like Akali, this is just a kind of normal effect. Maybe if it was an 8/8, it would be actually pretty decent. 8/8, give it 8 +8 +8, but for Roscon's Rumble terms, obviously it's bad. I don't know. I don't understand all of these cards. I don't understand why they were printed so terribly. I don't understand, because Roscon's Rumble has a lot of very powerful cards. That's what people don't understand, is, yeah, the overall expansion was weak, but there still are a lot of very powerful cards. Why couldn't it have been any of the legendaries? I don't know. I'm just ranting because this expansion is truly terrible. That being said, if you enjoyed, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Tell me why you think the Loas are so bad, what you think Blizzard was trying to do. If you have a favorite Loa, tell me. I think they're all bad and terrible, so I don't really like any of them, but yeah. If you enjoyed, or, I don't know, like, comment, subscribe, whatever. I'm just so in pain reading the Loas again, I'm gonna be honest. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.
Shadows are rising again!
Darker than they've ever been. It's evil.